All right, my friends, we are here for another episode of RowChat, and let me tell you, I am super excited about this one because Katie and I have been chatting offline, and we've already had some great conversation. Anyway, my name is Sarah Furman. I'm the owner of You Can Row Too, and I am the host of RowChat, which is our occasional, when we have something we're dying to talk about, show about all things rowing and other things that relate to rowing. And today we are talking all about running with our master instructor, Katie Rosso Recker.
Hello.
An awesome master instructor for You Can Row Too. Some of you who are watching have probably seen Katie at her indoor rowing trainings. But today we are talking a little bit more about running because Katie is also an amazing runner. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. Good to see you too.
From Florida, where you're hiding out in the quarantine.
Yeah.
All right. So quick background on, let's hear a little bit about running and, how did you get into running in the first place and what do you like to do as far as events and things?
So I've been running. So I first did running as far as racing for distance as a freshman in high school with cross country. So started there, but really just youth sports. You do a lot of running, a lot of distance just for conditioning. And I had realized then, like, wow, I really enjoy this. Doing wind sprints were not my thing. But if we had to do them over and over and over again, I'm like, wow, I really have endurance and I enjoyed it. So I've really been doing running, oh my goodness, 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
No.
And you still have your original knees, right?
Right, yes, all original joints. Yep.
We will actually get into that one a little bit later on because we were just talking about that a minute ago before we started. But I guess I already know the answer to this one. Which came first, running or rowing? I'm going to guess it was running.
Yes, running came first, but rowing was pretty quickly after. So I did start rowing in high school as well. So I do think that one kind of really leads well into the other, and I would always recommend both.
They're a good combo.
Yes. And then as far as one going into the other, I had a unique experience with being able to have rowers in my family. So I already knew of it as a sport. And so as a runner, already enjoying distance and being outside, also being an avid water enthusiast, it made sense. Like I can just essentially take running and put it out on the water. So it really went one right into the other.
Oh, interesting. Okay, great. I want to talk more about that a little bit later on. By the way, if you are watching live, please say hello. We would love to welcome you. And if you're watching the replay, let us know that too. Just drop replay into the comments. It's super fun to see who jumps on afterwards. All right, let's go on. I have a ton of questions, you guys, and we're trying to get this done kind of quick because we don't want to take up a lot of your time or, it's just weird at the moment trying to fit everything in. So we're going to keep it moving. But if you guys have questions, please drop them into the comments. I would love to see them and we'll get your questions answered. All right, Katie, let's get right into it. Thoughts on cross training?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I see, I'm not the biggest runner. I used to be much more of a runner than I am now. My knees are definitely not fond of my doing it. So I don't do it nearly as much as I used to. But I would love your thoughts about cross training for runners. Is it important? Is it something that people should be sort of actively thinking about doing?
Absolutely. Anytime you're having any repetitive motion, cross training is essential for you. So whether that repetitive motion is running or whether that repetitive motion is rowing, both would absolutely necessitate cross training to aid both in just your strength and endurance within that sport, but really your health of muscles and joints and ligaments and all the supporting tendons, just keeping you strong and well-rounded. When you have a repetitive motion, you tend to get a lot of imbalance. So runners tend to be really strong in front of body and tend to have a really weak posterior chain. So cross training really allows you to target that posterior chain without spending equal amounts of time on that cross training that you would have running. So say you're a distance runner and you're spending 2 hours, in that forward motion running, you don't have to spend 2 hours on, posterior chain movements. You can work in cross training really quick and precise and not have to feel like you're spending, carving 4 hours out of your day just to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, cross training is a must. And for many, it's hard to work that extra time in, but really make the time, because it will really allow you to stay in your sport for a much longer duration.
So talk about that training piece for a second. You're a marathoner, and you were or are training for an ultramarathon, is that right?
So I was, until our current environment, and right now the race is canceled. So.
Oh, okay. Is there a formula you like though for cross training, like for X amount of time or X number of miles, this amount of cross training?
Really, it kind of depends on your load and your intensity. So if you are training to really place in your category, in your age category, you will have to dedicate a little bit more time than the average person. But really, if you're just picking a race in 3 or 4 months because you enjoy it, and maybe it's something you're doing for the first time, or maybe you've done a few and you just like having that as a goal to keep you honest with your workouts throughout the year, then really that kind of general guideline of 3 to 5 30-minute sessions a week on resistance training, that's just kind of overall for health and wellness, really is all that you're needing to do. You're not really needing to go above and beyond that. Again, though, making sure that you're targeting whatever muscles, whatever energy groups are not as utilized within the modality that you're training in.
So more making sure you're getting balance in the muscles than like doubling up.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hi, Ricardo. Nice to see you. Ricardo's one of our certified instructors in Mexico. He was actually our first certified instructor in Mexico, certified rowing instructor, not running. Great to have you here watching. All right. Speaking of that kind of thing, what tells you that it's time to take a break?
So this is a tricky one, because ideally you want to take a break before there's pain. So for a lot of people, it's like, well, how do I know that I'm fine today and I'm going to hurt tomorrow? That is really a tricky one. Something that you can watch for is, if as you're doing your runs, if you're doing heart rate based training, if you're starting to notice that maybe your heart rate is maybe kind of creeping up out of its zone, assuming that climate and everything else is all the same, that could be an indicator that you're having to work a little bit harder, and maybe you need to go ahead and take a break and rest a little bit. Also, with that heart rate based training, there's a lot of really great apps out there. Garmin is one of them that really helps you manage your load versus rest time. So if you do have access to one of those apps and you use that as a training tool, absolutely taking into consideration those rest recommendations can really help. But certainly if you do start to feel any sort of pain, that is your body saying, stop.
Yeah, we at You Can Row Too, by the way, we do not do no pain, no gain.
Oh, absolutely not.
Ever. Pain, I just sent this last night to somebody in an email. If something hurts, you stop, period. You do not push through.
Absolutely.
Quick question on those apps. Are you, like the Garmin, I think will tell you, it'll measure your sleep and heart rate and stuff. And it's that kind of thing, right? Where it tells you should really take a rest day or.
Absolutely. So if you don't, so myself personally, I don't like wearing my device when I sleep. It just doesn't work well for me. However, because it does track what I'm doing during the day, at the end of the day, I can look and see like, all right, how much recovery do I need given my activities for that day? And so I tend to just take it from that standpoint. And I don't do the specific quality of my sleep. I would get better metrics if I took that into consideration as well. I tend to be a pretty good sleeper, so sorry.
Oh, good for you. That's exciting. Yeah. All right, so going a little bit deeper into the whole cross-training thing, you might have sort of answered this one already, but which activities do you think will really make you a better runner?
So as a runner, So as a road runner, so road running can be pretty different than trail running. So road running, your joints are really turning and moving the exact same spot with every stride. So whereas a trail runner, because you're going to have those undulating surfaces, your foot placement is always going to be slightly different. So even though you're still propelling forward, you're going to have a lot more lateral movements and balance as your foot is striking the surface in different elevations and different levels on the path. But certainly balance is going to be something that is really important. So balance between the hips and the core, really, really important. Again, you're going to get a little bit of that naturally as a trail runner, but as a road runner, you're really not. So working anything balance, anything lateral into a cross-training routine would be really beneficial. Again, also that posterior chain, they really get weakened on any type of running, whether it's road or trail. So think things like reverse lunges, just lunges in general, lots of lunges. For some people that the knee, if you're trying to protect the knee, you don't have to actually stride on a lunge. You can have your feet placed and then just dip into your lunge position. The same thing with the lateral lunges.
Like a split squat?
Exactly. So you can still get the movement and still utilize that same energy group, that same muscle group, without getting that additional impact of your foot striking the ground. I know when I get to the end, like when I'm really at the end of my training cycle for a marathon, any sort of additional foot strike, I can tell. And there might be plenty of people that don't have that experience, but certainly that is available to people to eliminate that additional impact.
All right, perfect. So let's talk a little bit about, you are also a rower, which is how you and I know each other. But we've had some great conversations about how you put the two together and how you like to use rowing as a cross-training exercise, as a day-off exercise for a lot of reasons. So talk a little bit about how you use rowing both in season and off season from running.
So this gets into a little bit of the like rowing Kool-Aid, right? Like I love rowing for anything, all the time, for everything. So that's where it's kind of nice as a supplement to running, because you can use rowing for recovery. So just nice and light, giving yourself a lot of time on the recovery, not pressing hard through the drive. Almost think of it like rowing for meditation. So just really, really easy and calm. So that's awesome. But if I'm feeling really good, or maybe it's not necessarily an off day, but just like a lighter day, it's so easy to just press a little bit more with your legs, increase your cadence a little bit. It meets you right where you're at, which is awesome. So the two go hand in hand really well, because I personally utilize heart rate based training. And so that makes it really easy that, like, let's say that day for running, I was going to be doing hill repeats. Well, I can absolutely translate that intensity right into an on the water or an erg workout by simply combining that same amount. So if I was going to be doing like a 2-minute on, like super like maximal threshold with a run up a hill, I would take that right into the water or onto the indoor rowing machine. So again, looking at those intervals and still getting that heart rate right where it needs to be. And anybody who has rowed certainly knows that 2 minutes on a machine or 2 minutes on the water, if you're going all out, is going to get your heart rate right up where it would be if you're going 2 minutes up a hill.
Now, okay, so talk about that a little bit though. Would you, if you're doing a sort of simulating hill repeats on a rowing machine, would you adjust the damper, or would you keep it where you normally would have it?
So that would just kind of depend on how I'm feeling that day. And this gets into a little bit of a gray area with indoor rowing, where you really, one of the things that I think is great for people, a goal to get to, is to get to the point where you can really feel connection with the machine, in that you can make little kind of micro adjustments to the damper setting to really give you the feel that you're looking for. And that just takes, it just takes time. It takes time to get there. There's not, and I would never recommend like you have to have the damper at this level or set your drag factor to a certain level. You just really need to know how it feels to you. If I have it at a 5 and I'm feeling like I really just need a little bit more, maybe I will go ahead and adjust the damper a little bit. But really, I just have to look at myself and how I'm feeling on the machine. Generally speaking, if I am doing something at a higher intensity and my stroke rate is also going to be higher, I'm really cognizant of that damper, and I'm going to have that set lower to really better replicate kind of an on the water experience. I certainly have heard plenty of people that as their rating is lower, actually having the damper a little bit higher helps them really feel more at the catch. That is a kind of a tricky gray area.
Okay, would you ever recommend, flipping the damper up to 10 to start with?
Never. I would never, ever recommend that.
What is your starting point?
So it's kind of like a weird between kind of 4 and 5-ish. Not quite at 5. Maybe sometimes like the top of the damper, like plastic piece will be like just over the 5. It's kooky little things that, I think a lot of rowers would understand.
But basically, so what we always tell people applies here. We always tell people that your starting point, and typically what we recommend, unless there's a special circumstance, is somewhere between 3 and 5.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Don't put the damper at 10.
Don't ever put it at 10.
If you walk away from today with nothing else, don't put the damper at 10.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So suppose somebody has to sub in a rowing workout for a running workout. I'm getting my words twisted in my head a little bit. It's raining. They can't get to the gym. The gym is closed or whatever. How do you recommend going about that?
So I did kind of, I jumped ahead just a little bit, and I kind of answered this a few questions ago, but really it's looking at your intensities. So I did talk about heart rate based training. However, if the athlete does not use heart rate based training, you can really just look at your intensities. So with intensities, I like to talk about like that perceived rate of exertion. So how are you feeling really on a scale from 1 to 10? So if your run, and all runners will know this, because when you are training, whether it's for a 5K, a 10K, a half, whatever your distance is, your runs each week have variety in them. It's not just run 2 miles, run 3 miles. It's a tempo run or a hill run or just slow and steady run. Like there are variations to those runs. So let's say as a runner, it's a Monday run and you are really just needing to get some miles in, just steady. Then you would get on the rower and also just do a nice, just kind of what we call the just row. Get on, really get to a good pace where you're feeling that perceived rate of exertion that would mimic where you would have been for that run that day, and just get those miles in. So if you were going to be doing 45 minutes, absolutely do 45 minutes on the indoor rower at that intensity that you were going to be at. So you can really just take your time and your intensity and just put that right onto the rowing machine. It can get a little finicky sometimes, like I said, with those, if you're using like a hill repeat, but again, it's really just mimicking intensity and duration in as far as time, not distance, because your distance running is going to be very different than your distance rowing. So really looking at mimicking intensity, mimicking time.
Like total time. So if your run is going to take you 45 minutes, you do 45 minutes.
Plan 45 minutes also on the rowing machine. And then as a runner, this kind of circles back to what we were talking about towards the beginning with cross training, is that because rowing utilizes that posterior chain, you're now not only getting in your time and your intensities, but now you're also working in cross training too. So you're kind of getting a little bit of both, which is awesome.
That is awesome. All right, we have a couple more questions and a little bit more time. So if anybody has a question who's watching live, there are a bunch of you watching live, and I'm thrilled. I'm going to jump over here to the comments for 1 second. Bree is watching. Hey, Bree, she's another one of our certified instructors. She is going to pass this information on to her rowing clients and her future running clients. So maybe, Bree, are you thinking about getting into adding on a new branch of fitness modality in your business? That would be amazing. Jelani, I agree. You do need a concept too. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Yes, you do.
Yes.
And they're making them again. So get on the wait list and get one. Let's see. I love what you said. I just wanted to mention this. I love what you said about the fact that running training programs tend to have very specific, this day you're doing a tempo run, this day you're doing a long run, this day you're doing sprints or whatever it is. Yep. For whatever reason, that doesn't tend to happen as readily, I would say, in rowing. But I love that idea. And actually, you're giving me an idea for something that we can do too. But I would love to see something that would allow rowers to get out of that habit that, I feel like we all fall into at some point of I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to pull on the handle and I'm just going to row for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that any clients of mine have definitely seen. I am really big on the idea of cyclical training. So training with a purpose, having a clear 6 weeks or 8 week plan where you're kind of building and then taking that period of rest. It really, really helps with just keeping you healthy for a longer period of time. So it's really looking at how a lot of other sports train and incorporating that into rowing as well.
Would you use that just for a general conditioning program, for example?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I think it's also really helpful for people to know right off the bat that I'm going to have a rest period.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And it's helpful because we all have this time where we're on vacation or something else and you think, oh gosh, I was supposed to be at the gym, and then that's going to be the one thing that's going to keep you from going back, right? So if you just plan ahead that, all right, I've got my 6 weeks and I've got work travel or vacation or whatnot, you can just work your rest into that period that you're going to be gone. It's really helpful when you have the benefit of being able to plan out like that, of course.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So we have not talked about this yet, but I definitely wanted to touch on it before we end here. What about a runner who wants to get into rowing? How would you recommend that they approach that?
So
and why? I think we kind of touched on that part, but why?
Yep. So absolutely, because of the ability to be able to row when you otherwise might not be able to be training. As we're getting into nicer weather months, certainly there's a lot of opportunity outside, but in many parts of the country, that also comes with severe weather. So being able to have an opportunity to do something inside that's not a treadmill. A lot of outside distance runners really don't like doing treadmill work. I can certainly understand that. So it does give a different alternative. Also, with the availability of the machines to have in your own home, it can also be really beneficial for people in situations like what we've been going through the last couple months to be able to have that access. As far as getting started, if they're not already subscribed to You Can Row Too, starting with that. So
absolutely.
But then also the Row Ready programming. So another bit of a plug. That is a great way to get started because it is a defined plan with the videos to really help with all of the technique to get you going. As a runner, one of the best things about running is that you can just put on your shoes and go. So when you're getting into something new, though, there can be some frustration with trying to get up to speed. So starting with a programming like Row Ready, it just allows you, it sets, I think, the right expectations on what you should be doing for week 1, for week 2, and so on. So I think for somebody that's anxious to just get out and go and just get on the machine and row, this really helps them make sure that they're starting in an effective way and also in a really meaningful way. trying to.
Thanks for mentioning that. That was not rehearsed, you guys. I was not expecting Katie to say that, but it is. I have to say, it is a really great program that another one of our master instructors, Cassie Neiman, put together, and it is all about taking you from the get-go, from I don't know what I'm doing on the machine to I'm actually a rowing rock star and I'm really good at it now. So it is a great program. I'll put the link to it in the comments here for anybody who wants to go get more information on that.
So really, when you're trying anything new, being able to seek help and advice to get started. You can also use the Concept 2 website to get in touch with other certified instructors in your area. I will say that utilizing a certified instructor would also be really, really beneficial. Just somebody who's had rowing experience doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a great indoor rowing instructor to get you started. It is a different background. And so really to be keeping you safe and getting you started in, again, the most efficient and meaningful way possible, having that instructor to help as well would also be a really great way to go. But don't try to do it on your own. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Don't do it on your own.
And there are, we have our Row Strong Facebook group, which is completely free. We would love to have you come and join us in there. There's so much help available in there. We have lots of master instructors, lots of certified instructors are in there. There's, lots of ways to get it done. And as long as I'm putting out a shameless plug, I have to put out a shameless plug for 101 Best Rowing Workouts, which comes out at the end of June. The ebook does. The print version comes out at the end of July. And that's going to have some great rowing workouts in it as well, really all the way from beginner all the way up to super advanced workouts that one of our master instructors who was an Olympian did. Those are crazy. Enter at your own risk. That's all I'm going to say about those. But they're definitely fun to look at and see what you have to do if you want to train to be an Olympian, because it's kind of insane. Anyway, just one more question, actually. I'm just curious, what are your favorite resources for information on running? As long as we're talking about doing things with credible support, where would you turn to for more information on running well?
So USA Track and Field is a great one because they're also the overseeing body for any big running events across the US. So whether it's short distance, whether it's road, even for some of the trail runs. And then if you are a trail runner going through any local or regional associations in your area would also be a really great way to start. As a runner, I think a lot of people think I can just put on a pair of shoes and go. Yeah. I would caution that there is technique involved in running as well. And if it is available in your area to have a run analysis, I would also definitely recommend that. Usually you could go through like an orthopedic center, sometimes some chiropractors, but definitely an orthopedic type of facility that maybe has like a physical rehab or like that often have.
Well, not like a running shoe store?
Not a running shoe store. Okay. No, although some running shoe stores might have somebody who's licensed to do that. So absolutely, if you have somebody like that in your area, really looking at somebody who's licensed and can utilize certain technologies to be doing the run analysis would be huge.
Okay. All right, excellent. Well, Katie, thank you so much. This has been amazing, and we are ending right on time. If you have questions, you've got 2 minutes to get them in, because I'm sticking to our 30-minute time limit. I like to start on time and end on time. This has been just awesome, and I so appreciate you taking the time away from your family and everything else you've got going on right now. And here's hoping that you can get back out on the road and train.
Oh my goodness.
Very, very soon.
It is amazing how different it is to have a run, at least for me, to have a run just for a run versus a run that is for like a purpose. Mm-hmm. I really use that term loosely because a purpose is great. It's for myself and my health, right? That's enough purpose. But this is the first time in a really long time that I haven't had a goal of a specific run that I'm training for. So
I feel like you're always training for something.
Always. It's fun. I enjoy it. And I like having that cycle to kind of work back from. And then also being really busy. It's just something that's worked out for me to kind of keep me on top of my workouts and what I need to get done each week.
Yeah.
So I get really grumpy if I don't get a workout in. So.
Well, we don't want to have that.
Yeah, no.
All right,
no,
everybody.
I don't want that either.
This was just great. Katie, thank you so much for giving us your time and your information and your inspiration as always. This is awesome. Any questions, please drop them down in the comments. Again, if you're watching the replay, type in replay 2 and let us know. We will both be watching the stream here. And so if there's anything that comes up later, just let us know. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day and we will see you on the next RowChat.
Thanks everyone for having me. Thanks, Sarah.